The annual physical was supposed to be routine. Jake Mercer had been through 3 of them already during his posting at Helios 7, the border station that served as a hub for human-alien cooperation programs. The Thraxian medical facility was the best in the sector. Their biological expertise was legendary, their protocols meticulous. Dr. Seris Valen was the physician Jake always requested. 3 years of working together had built a comfortable professional relationship. She was methodical, careful, and spoke standard clearly enough that his translator rarely had to engage. "Everything looks good in your preliminary scans, Doctor," Valen said, her bioluminescent patterns showing the calm blue that indicated professional focus. "I'm going to administer the standard immune booster. You've had this before, should feel the same as always." Jake nodded, rolling up his sleeve. He'd received the immune booster twice before, a Thraxian-designed treatment that helped prevent cross-species pathogen transfer. It was standard for anyone working in mixed-species environments. The medical bay was busier than usual. Multiple species getting various treatments, technicians moving between stations, the usual organized chaos of a facility that served dozens of different biologies. Dr. Valen managed it all with her characteristic efficiency. She prepared the injector with smooth, practiced movements. Jake barely felt the pressure as she administered the injection to his upper arm. "There, that should." "Doctor." Valen froze mid-sentence. Jake had never seen a Thraxian freeze like that. They were typically fluid in their movements, graceful even in stillness. This was different. This was the complete cessation of motion that came from absolute horror. She was staring at the empty injector in her hand, then at the medical tray beside her where 2 other injectors sat in their cradles. One marked with human biocodes in blue, one marked with Kyorian biocodes in purple. The injector in her hand had purple residue. "What was in that?" Jake asked, his brain starting to catch up to what her body language was screaming. Dr. Valen was already moving, her calm shattered. She hit the emergency alert, her bioluminescent patterns flashing red, the universal color for critical danger. "The injection I just gave you." Her voice was carefully controlled, but Jake could hear the tremor underneath. "It was Kyorian cellular regeneration therapy, not the human immune booster. They were both prepared for my next set of appointments, and I—" She stopped herself, forcing professional focus despite the horror in her expression. "It's designed for Kyorian biology, for their DNA structure. It repairs catastrophic cellular damage by rewriting damaged genetic sequences." Jake's stomach dropped. "Okay, so what does it do to humans?" "Doctor." Valen met his eyes and Jake saw something he'd never seen in a Thraxian physician before: fear. "Humans were never meant to survive this," she said quietly. The words hung in the air like a death sentence. "Explain." Jake forced his voice to stay steady. "The therapy doesn't just repair cells, it rewrites genetic code. Kyorians have specific genetic buffers, regulatory sequences that control the rewriting process. Without those buffers," she was pulling up medical data even as she spoke, her hands moving with desperate precision. "Without them, the therapy causes complete cellular breakdown, cascading genetic failure. It's not compatible with human biology. It's not compatible with any biology except Kyorian." "How long?" Jake asked. "Minutes, maybe less. Your cells are already being rewritten. The process is irreversible." Medical teams were rushing in, alerted by Dr. Valen's emergency call. They moved with organized efficiency, but Jake could see the looks on their faces as they pulled up his bio-readings. Horror, pity. The resigned expression of medical professionals who knew they were watching someone die. Jake could feel something happening in his body, heat spreading from the injection site, moving through his bloodstream. A strange sensation like his blood was carbonating, tiny bubbles of wrongness spreading through his system. "I'm going to do everything I can," Dr. Valen was saying, her voice thick with emotion he'd never heard from her before. "Every resource we have." But there's no antidote, Jake finished for her. No, I'm sorry, I'm so sorry. The pain started exactly 3 minutes after injection. Jake had experienced pain before. Broken ribs from a cargo handling accident 2 years ago. Torn shoulder muscle from a training exercise. The usual collection of injuries that came from working in environments where things were heavy and gravity was sometimes optional. This was different. This felt like his body was being dismantled at the molecular level and rebuilt wrong. Like every cell was being taken apart and reassembled according to instructions written in a language his biology couldn't read. He was vaguely aware of Dr. Valen's voice, steady despite the tremor underneath. Vital signs are fluctuating wildly. Heart rate 200, no, weight dropping to 30, spiking again to 180. Body temperature shifting between hypothermic and hyperthermic ranges. Blood chemistry changing faster than our sensors can track. Another voice, a medical technician whose name Jake couldn't remember through the haze of pain. The genetic rewriting has reached critical mass. His DNA is being restructured, multiple systems failing. This is consistent with the terminal phase we'd expect. Terminal phase. Jake wanted to laugh at the clinical language, but his jaw was clenched too tight to make sounds. He wasn't dying. He refused to die from a medical mistake. That was too stupid, too pointless. Heart rate stabilizing at 95, the technician said, confusion creeping into their professional tone. That shouldn't be possible. The cardiac tissue should have failed by now. Dr. Valen was running scan after scan, her bioluminescent patterns cycling through colors Jake had never seen before. His genetic code is being rewritten, she said, and her voice carried something between horror and awe. I can see it happening in real time, but instead of breaking down, she ran another scan. He's adapting. His body is accepting the rewrite, incorporating it. That's impossible. Clearly not, Jake managed through gritted teeth. Since it's happening. The pain continued. 2 hours of Jake's body tearing itself apart and rebuilding at the genetic level, while Theraxian medical science watched in stunned silence. Every scan showed the same impossible thing. His DNA was being restructured by the Kyorian therapy, but instead of causing cellular collapse, his body was somehow integrating the changes, using them, adapting in real time to genetic rewriting that should have killed him in minutes. Cellular regeneration rates are increasing, a technician reported. Damaged tissue from the rewriting process is healing faster than we can measure. His immune system is. It's not just fighting the change, it's incorporating it, making it part of his baseline biology. Dr. Valen looked at Jake like he was something she'd never seen before. How are you doing this? She whispered. Jake didn't have an answer. He was too busy surviving. When the pain finally subsided, dropping from excruciating to merely awful to a dull ache, Jake was exhausted. His body felt different. Not wrong exactly, just changed. Like he'd been running the same operating system his whole life and someone had just upgraded it without asking. Dr. Valen ran comprehensive scans, her hands slightly unsteady. For a species known for clinical detachment, she was showing remarkable emotion. Your genetic code has been fundamentally altered, she said finally. The Kyorian therapy rewrote approximately 23% of your DNA. That should have killed you. Instead, your body not only accepted the changes but optimized them. You've integrated Kyorian regenerative capabilities into human genetic structure. What does that mean? Jake's voice was rough. It means you should be dead. Dr. Valen's bioluminescent patterns showed a color Jake's database identified as profound confusion. But you're not, and I have absolutely no idea why. Over the following week, Jake underwent the most comprehensive medical examination any human had ever experienced. Theraxian scientists, human medical researchers brought in from Earth, even curious Kyorian biologists who wanted to understand how their species-specific therapy had done, whatever it had done to a human. The findings were consistent and deeply unsettling to the alien medical community. Jake's body hadn't just survived the genetic rewriting, it had thrived on it. A Kyorian biologist named Vareth presented findings to the assembled medical team. The cellular regeneration therapy works for Kyorians because we have specific regulatory sequences in our DNA, genetic breaks, that control the rewriting process. These sequences prevent the therapy from running wild and rewriting everything. Humans don't have these sequences. So what stopped it from killing him? One of the human doctors asked. Nothing should have stopped it. That's what we don't understand. Vareth pulled up comparative genetic scans. Human DNA has something we didn't account for, an adaptability we didn't recognize. Your genetic code is remarkably plastic, prone to accepting changes and integrating them rather than rejecting them outright. Evolution, Dr. Valen said quietly. Humans evolved on a high-variation planet. Your genetic flexibility is an evolutionary advantage for dealing with diverse environmental challenges. But this wasn't environmental pressure, Vareth protested. This was directed genetic rewriting designed to be lethal to any species without Kyorian regulatory sequences. His body shouldn't have been able to adapt fast enough to survive, let alone thrive. Yet the evidence was undeniable. Tests showed Jake's cellular regeneration was now orders of magnitude faster than baseline human. A deliberate cut healed in minutes. They'd broken his finger, with his permission, and watched it heal completely in 3 hours. His immune system had been supercharged. It identified and neutralized pathogens with unprecedented efficiency. They'd exposed him to several common cross-species infections, and his body had eliminated them before symptoms could manifest. He's essentially become a hybrid, one of the human researchers said. Human-based biology with Kyorian regenerative capabilities integrated at the genetic level. This is unprecedented. Dr. Valen presented her findings to a medical council that included representatives from a dozen species. Human adaptability is far greater than our models predicted. We've always known humans were generalists, capable of surviving in diverse environments, eating varied foods, adapting to different gravities and atmospheres better than most species. But we interpreted this as baseline competence across multiple areas, rather than exceptional capability in any specific domain. She pulled up Jake's comparative scans, showing his DNA before and after the incident. What we're seeing suggests something different. Human biology isn't just adequate across multiple domains, it's aggressively, almost dangerously adaptive. When confronted with genetic rewriting that should have killed him, Jake's body didn't just survive. It weaponized the change, made it advantageous. That's not normal biology, that's something else entirely. A Thraxian geneticist raised the question everyone was thinking. If one human can survive and adapt to Kyorian genetic therapy, we specifically designed to be lethal to any species without our regulatory buffers, what else can they survive? What other supposedly species-specific treatments might they be able to weaponize? The silence that followed was heavy with implication. Jake, sitting in the observation area listening to them discuss him like he was a lab specimen, saw the shift happening in real time. He was no longer just a patient who survived a medical error. He was proof of concept that humans were more dangerous than anyone had realized. 6 months after the incident, Jake sat in Dr. Valen's office reviewing the long-term data. His enhanced regeneration had stabilized at levels that made human doctors simultaneously excited and nervous. He'd been cleared for normal activity with the caveat that he was technically the first member of a new genetic variant of human. "I need to ask you something," Dr. Valen said, her bioluminescent patterns showing the deep blue of serious contemplation. "When you were in the worst of the pain, when the rewriting was happening, did you ever think about just giving up, letting it happen?" Jake thought about it. "Honestly, no. I was in agony. I thought I might die, but giving up didn't really occur to me. I was too busy being angry about dying from a medical mistake to actually just accept it. Dr. Valen made a sound that might have been a laugh. That's very human and very revealing. She pulled up a research paper, her own work, Jake noticed. We've been studying human evolutionary history more closely. Your species evolved on what we'd classify as a Class 7 death world. Extreme environmental variation, aggressive megafauna, diseases, parasites, and constant environmental challenges. Most species evolve in more stable environments. They develop specific adaptations for specific niches. And humans. Humans evolve to survive everywhere, to eat anything, to adapt to any challenge. She highlighted specific genetic markers. Your DNA is built for adaptation. It's why humans can digest foods that would poison most species. Why you can survive temperature ranges that would kill more specialized species. Why you recover from injuries that would be permanently debilitating to others. That's not new information, Jake said. It is to us. We knew the facts, but we didn't understand the implication. She met his eyes. Your genetic code is fundamentally built to adapt or die, and it has a strong evolutionary preference for adapting. When the Kyorian therapy hit your system, it triggered that adaptation response at the genetic level. And I adapted instead of dying. You didn't just adapt, you optimized. The therapy was designed for species with stable genetics that need external help to repair catastrophic damage. But human genetics aren't stable, they're plastic, adaptable. When confronted with an existential threat at the genetic level, your body didn't try to maintain stability. It adapted, aggressively. She was quiet for a moment, her patterns shifting to colors Jake had learned meant discomfort. It's why I said humans were never meant to survive this. I meant it literally. The therapy wasn't designed for a species capable of that level of genetic adaptation. We didn't think such a species existed. The implications had been spreading through the galactic medical community like wildfire. Several alien civilizations had quietly begun reviewing their xenobiology protocols. There was serious discussion about restricting human access to certain genetic therapies, not because they'd be harmful to humans, but because there was genuine concern about what humans might adapt them into. Jake had become simultaneously a medical marvel and a source of interspecies tension. Some species saw him as proof that humans were more resilient than anyone realized. Others saw him as proof that humans were more dangerous than anyone realized. How do you feel about all of this? Dr. Valen asked. About being the person who accidentally proved humans are scarier than most species thought. Jake shrugged. I'm alive. That's better than the alternative. If it makes other species nervous that we're harder to kill than they assumed, he smiled slightly. Maybe that's not the worst thing. Galaxy's a dangerous place. Being underestimated has its advantages. Dr. Valen's expression was complicated. I made a mistake that should have killed you. Instead, I accidentally revealed something fundamental about human biology that has changed how multiple civilizations view your species. I don't know if I should apologize for the error or the consequence. The error definitely apologize for, still having nightmares about that pain. Jake's tone was light but serious. The consequence. Maybe humanity needed to be seen as more than just the friendly generalists who can eat anything and survive anywhere. Maybe it's good that the galaxy knows we're not just adaptable, we're aggressively, dangerously adaptable. He thought about the evolutionary history Dr. Valen had referenced. Earth as a death world. Humanity as a species that survived by being impossible to kill permanently. Evolution built us to survive everything a death world could throw at us, Jake continued. Predators, diseases, climate shifts, food scarcity, everything. This just proved that everything includes things that weren't even meant for our biology. Years later, the incident would be studied in xenobiology courses across the galaxy. The Mercer case became a teaching moment about the dangers of underestimating species adaptability. the critical importance of medical protocol verification, and the unsettling reality that humans, often dismissed as generalist omnivores without specialized advantages, possessed a form of biological adaptability that bordered on the supernatural. Dr. Valen's paper, Unexpected Genetic Plasticity in Human Biology, a case study in cross-species medical error, became one of the most cited works in xenobiology. But buried in the technical language and medical data was a simple truth that she'd whispered in horror when she first realized her mistake. Humans were never meant to survive this. But they did, because evolution had built them to survive everything. And in a galaxy full of species adapted to specific niches and stable environments, that made humanity not just resilient, but quietly, profoundly dangerous in ways that most civilizations were only beginning to understand. Jake Mercer lived the rest of his life as the proof that when you accidentally give a human something designed to kill them, you might just make them stronger. And that, more than any military might or technological advancement, was what made humanity truly terrifying to a galaxy that was just starting to realize what it meant